Good afternoon, councillors. Welcome, members of the public, officers. I declare this meeting open, the first meeting of 2016. Great to see everybody here, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We have requests for leave of absence from Councillor Giles and Steele, and we have apologies from Councillor Steck and McGuell for tonight. Under announcements, just a couple of announcements, councillors. Certainly the bushfire which ravaged Waroona and parts of Harvey Council last week, and the devastation that we saw, we certainly from the City of Bunbury community, we were heavily involved through our volunteers, many of whom were officers of the city and staff members of the city, whether they are active bushfire volunteers or people who volunteered to help out with the various fundraising, with the various provision of services, particularly Rotary clubs and Lion clubs. They all got involved. So my thanks on your behalf to all of them, and I wish the communities every success in their long recovery ahead of them. Tonight we'll be dealing with a matter to donate $10,000 to the bushfire, the Lord Mayor's bushfire appeal, and I expect that we'll have unanimous support for that. With the Rediscover 2016 was a huge success on the weekend. It was just very, very successful. I was advised by officers this morning from the city that with our Facebook there were actually posts from overseas on the Rediscover project. So, and I do know that some of the artists were internationally renowned mural artists, but for those of you who haven't seen all the artwork, I'd encourage you to do so, because it's simply quite stunning, and I applaud Andrew Fraser, the sponsors, the volunteers and the artists for their 2016 Rediscover. Councillors, we go to item 4. Can someone move the executive recommendation regarding Councillor Giles and Steele leave of absence for tonight? Councillor Cook, Councillor Jones, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. Under declarations of interest, Councillor Morris declares a financial interest in item 10.2.4. Councillor Jones declares an impartiality interest in items 10.28, 10.42 and 10.52 as she is Chair of ACWEST. Councillor McGuinness declares a financial interest in item 10.2.4. Councillor Warnock declares an impartiality interest in item 10.28, 10.42, 10.52 as she does public relations for ACWEST. Are there any further declarations of interest, councillors, for tonight? Thank you. Public question time. Mr. Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The questions tonight are: 1. Does Section 2, subsection 7, Part 2B of the Local Government Act provide that one of the roles of council as the elected body is to determine the local government's policies? 2. What is the difference between a local government policy and a local government policy guideline? And 3. In particular, are policy guidelines determined by the council as the elected body or by the executive? And can they be changed without the changes being approved by the elected council?
Thank you. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In relation to question 1, yes, it does. Question 2, on the 25th of September 2012, Council adopted a policy framework which outlines this, and there's Council decision there for reference. Question 3, Council determines Council policies upon recommendation by the Policy and Review Development Committee. Where a corporate guideline is linked to the policy, these are also reviewed or modified by the committee.
Thank you. Can someone move the minutes of the last ordinary council meeting? Councillor Jones, Councillor Hayward, all in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. with item 7.1.2, minutes of the Council Advisory Committee. Councillor Kelly. Thank you. Is it seconded? Councillor Cook. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Do we have any petitions tonight, councillors? We have a request for a deputation or presentation from Mr. Smith, who wishes to speak to item 10.2.5. Those who consent, please indicate. Those who don't, that consent is approved. So, councillors, dealing with the agenda tonight, the items to come out are 10.2.4, 10.2.5, 10.2.8, 10.2.9, 10.4.2, 10.5.2. Are there any further matters that anyone wishes to debate? Can someone move that we do the rest en bloc? Councillor Cook, Councillor Jones, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll go to item 10.2.4, councillors. I'll just get there. Yeah, sorry, Councillor McGuinness. So, councillors, Councillor McGuinness has declared a financial interest in this matter. Can I have someone move the executive recommendation? Councillor Kelly, Councillor Warnock. All in favour? It's carried unanimously, apart from Councillor McGuinness. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Cook. 10.2.5. Mr. Smith. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the role of council is defined by section 2.7 of the Act, which says the council A, governs the local government affairs, and B, is responsible for the performance of the local government's functions, and 2, without limiting subsection 1, the council is to oversee the allocation of the local government's finances and resources, and B, determine the local government's policies. Councillors also have roles under the Local Government Act, individually, and in my view, anything that detracts from the capacity of a councillor or council to deliver on those functions and responsibilities ought not be included in matters of conduct of a councillor. Some of you may be aware that I was the subject of some complaints by a councillor, as was another member of council and I think a member of the executive staff. Happily, ultimately all of those complaints were dismissed. But I can tell you, getting to that conclusion took an enormous amount of time, and the processes that are used for determining matters by the conduct panel are, in my view, very much in need of reform. And it's no wonder that the department has now produced a report that runs to 87 pages, 61 recommendations, of which you are expected tonight to approve all of those recommendations, or as a council, save and except for 8 that are nominated by the CEO. We in local government, you in local government in Western Australia, need to understand that we are probably one of the weakest forms of government, local government, anywhere in the world. If you have any doubt about that, you should look at the responsibilities and the way in which other local governments and other places operate. Sadly, out of the Australian scene, I think we are the most constrained local government. Not only do we not have a lot of responsibility, but things that are happening are like the establishment of the DAPs, which takes the responsibility for decision making by council away from council and delivers it to a DAP, is really reducing the role of council and council laws. One of the matters that concerns me in relation to the council recommendations that are before you tonight is the CEO does not cover one important change that is being proposed. One important change is that a councillor may not in the future, if the regulation is adopted that's proposed, in any way influence the council as to the appraisal of the CEO or the others that you may be responsible for, except through a defined appraisal process and in accordance with the principles of natural justice that apply to the courts. Now, effectively, that means that if, whether you are on the appraisal panel or not for the CEO's performance, you won't be able to talk to each other outside of a formal meeting of the appraisal committee. And the methodology for the appraisal has to conform with the rules of natural justice as if you were determining matters as a court, rather than your satisfaction with the performance of the CEO leading up to there. Now, I just would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, is actually go through all of these recommendations and ask how easy it would be. The problem that I ran into with the council in the main was what's called the interference with the administration. But it's not couched in terms of interference with administration. It's couched in terms, it's a misconduct on your part if you do or attempt to assist a member of staff with any administrative
Mr. Smith, can you just summarise, please?
That area is getting more complicated because what constitutes a administrative task is proposed to be defined as anything that is delegated to the CEO, either by the Act, by council, or by any other means.
Thank you very much. Councillor, can I have someone move? Councillor Kelly, seconder. Councillor Hayward, all in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.2.8. Councillors, we have the CEO has inserted a third point there. I'll just ask him to explain that point and then we'll seek someone to move it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, following the briefing last week, we sought some further clarification in relation to the funding partners in the program. At this point in time, we haven't finalised the funding to come from Water Corp in relation to this matter. As such, if they're not able to provide it, rather than having to bring a further report back to council, we're proposing that we look at another project that's in our long-term finance plan and substitute that into it. So this is just providing a little bit of flexibility in the event that we don't get that match funding that we require from the other funding partners.
Thank you. Is someone prepared to move the three? Councillor Kelly? Question? Sure.
Of the CEO, if I may.
Sure.
It says that the alternative project, the methodology by which you look at those projects, obviously they come from our long-term plans. Will you be having a short list of those? Are there 2, 3, 5, 10? And if there are, will we at council have any input to perhaps looking at the short list before the decision is made?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, some of those projects are already identified in the council report, some of the ones we've looked at. What we've got to do is go through and assess that against the assessment criteria in the grant funding round. So it will only be projects that actually comply that we'll be able to put forward. And as I've said in the final bit of the recommendation there, is that it will be submitted to council before we actually submit. So it's just so we can do all the legwork and everything else and not sort of, we've only got a couple of weeks to get these projects in. So it's just to buy us a little bit of time more than anything else, but it will be presented to council prior to final submission.
Second up, Councillor Hayward. All in favour, please indicate. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.2.9, we need an absolute majority here, so I'm prepared to move that one. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Cook. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, councillors. Thank you. .4.2, someone prepared to move that one? Councillor Cook, seconded Councillor Hayward. Likely to be any debate on this one? I'll put it. All in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We're moving to 10.52, councillors, when I can get there. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Hayward. Councillor McCleary seconds. All in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And with that, councillors and ladies and gentlemen, I declare... Sorry, what have we got?
Leave for absence for leave.
Oh, look. I was hoping you'd just overlook that. Oh, what do you reckon, councillors? Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Jones. Councillor Hayward, all in favour, please indicate. That's approved unanimously, Councillor Kelly. I'll better go through the rest of this agenda. I was pretty right until that one. Thank you very much, everyone. I declare the meeting closed at 5:47 p.m.
There's the issue of